Wow. Um, it's really getting tough on these losses. And I think this one was really tough because the way it started out, the first two drives, up 14 nothing. But I don't know about you guys. Tell me in the comments below if you thought the same thing. Even when they did that, went up 14 nothing and was looking just dominating between the defense and the way the offense was moving after that second drive, and they went up 14 nothing. Tell me, I know me, I still didn't feel comfortable. It's almost like I thought, man, get 17 or 20 points, and then I'll start relaxing because I figured the defense would hold them to under 20 points. And realistically, they kind of did. The touchdown that won the game was in overtime. So in regulation, they held them to 17. But they did have some blown. They didn't play as, I don't know. They didn't play to me. I mean, I got to just give Mordecai with Wisconsin kudos. But Nebraska's tackling really failed them in this game. And for once, Nebraska didn't turn the ball over. I know that final play was a turnover officially, but 4th and 18, desperation pass. I'm not even going to count that one, even though it really counts in the books. So realistically, to me, they didn't turn the ball over, and the defense then kind of had some busted plays here and there, and then the tackling really failed them. And, you give Wisconsin players credit too, Mordecai there, getting out of a lot of them tackles. But when you kind of live and breed, defense and tackling, and that's what you've been working on, then you really, that's where you really needed it. And it's kind of like, it's this game and the Michigan State game where the defense just wasn't themselves, because you got 17 points in both games. And normally, in the other losses besides the Michigan and Colorado game, you'd have won them games. And so I was kind of a little disappointed. Another one I was really disappointed in, and tell me if you guys agree with this, is the coaching staff. The time management on both the final drive of the halves, both halves, and the coaching, the play calling in critical situations, it seemed like they just didn't have a good game. And I think that hurt Nebraska in the long run. Now, for the positive side, let's not realize this ain't all negative. And keep in mind, you guys have heard me say it before, and I've said it for years. And I don't know how many of you guys are Survivor fans. I'm a big Survivor fan. I watch Survivor. And there was one season where one of the tribes just could not lose. They won almost every challenge. And they got to the point they just got fed up with someone. They didn't want him on there. He was kind of, mixing things up. And so they all kind of collectively agreed, let's lose the next challenge so we could get rid of him. And I remember thinking there, because I've always believed this, man, you don't want to do that. Losing is addictive. And what happened was they blew the game. You even tell they were blowing it. Blew the challenge, got the guy out, but then they couldn't win again. They just struggled to win. And I've always said that. Losing is addictive. And Nebraska and the Huskers have lost so much in the last 5 or 6 years. I think it's in their head. It's in the point it's in our head. Like I said, they're up 14 nothing, and they're already figuring out, man, what's going to happen now? I'm waiting for the turnovers. I'm waiting for something to happen to throw this, and I'm not even playing, and I can't get that out of my head. And so I just think there's just something about, and I don't know what it is, but there's something about losing that when you get on a losing streak, when you start losing, it's hard to get out of. Now, keep in mind, it's harder to break a losing streak than to keep a winning streak going. In other words, them seem to break away. So it's that losing. And so for some reason, and I understand people's going to say, well, Michigan State lost 6 in a row and they beat Nebraska. Maryland lost, 3 in a row or 4 in a row, whatever it was. Maybe it was 5 in a row and then beat Nebraska. And then here comes Wisconsin, who just lost 3 in a row. beats Nebraska. That's true, but Nebraska's been losing 5 or 6 years in a row. And so it's more embedded into them. And don't get me wrong, these teams seem to try to give them away at the times we were playing them. If you remember the Michigan State, the Maryland, wasn't like they were flawless. It just Nebraska did enough, made more mistakes to cost them. And what's sad is if we would have had any of this effort in the Minnesota game, the Michigan State game, or the Maryland game, we'd had the same kind of quarterback play in any of them 3 games, they would have been wins. And we'd already be bowl manageable. I think that's what affected Rule and his play calling on this time, where last week it was all about going for the win. And I even said that. I didn't mind going for the win. But the win doesn't mean you have to pass the ball. You have to go by what's going on in the game. At that time, it was a defensive battle. The defense already was holding Maryland back. Their 10 points was off of turnovers, where the defense kept them in check, except maybe one play that gave them that touchdown. So the defense was doing their job. So now when you're down there 3rd and goal and all that, a field goal would have been a win. And to me, it would have made a difference. I understand you're saying, well, they went down and kicked and won it. Well, I think by then the defense the air just kind of get out of them, mainly after the 5th turnover. So this is kind of what I'm thinking about. Now when you're driving down and you got the time to do it and you're in field goal, why waste that time? Why right before the half and he's going, oh, we're up by 4. And that's how he said it was, well, we were up for 4. We finally went into a locker room up. Yes, but it's not over with. They just scored 10 unanswered points. Instead of going for that touchdown in that situation, why not use that 8 seconds, run a play to set up where Tristan likes the kick. Every kicker's got a better spot on the field, left hash mark, right hash mark, than they do in other spots. They feel more comfortable. So wherever he's comfortable, it's like, okay, let's run the ball and get it over there. You probably could have ran a couple plays because you still had timeouts. So when you would have snapped the ball and got some play, it might have ran 2 or 3 seconds, called timeout, now you're down to 5. You could have ran another one. Now you're down to, 1, then you're down to 2 or 1. And then kick the field goal, and I guarantee you then they would probably hit it and they'd went up 17-10, and them 3 points would have mattered. Them 3 points would have been the difference in the game. That final drive where they ended up kicking the field goal, that wouldn't have mattered because winning the game would have been kicking the field goal. So I just thought Rule kind of botched the first half and then second half where you could at least used your timeouts a little better and tried to go for that win there. When it came to the overtime, it just seemed to me at that point, and obviously that's how you got to look at it, you just woke Wisconsin up. You woke up the sleeping giant. They just lost 3 in a row. They got down 14-0 right off the bat. They've come all the way back now, tied it. They were not going to be 9. Plus, they're at home. You're down there in the student section with Wisconsin. So it was almost... And, Nebraska didn't get a few breaks that here or there would have made a difference. But the tackling was big. So I was impressed with Purdy. And I always said I wanted to see what Purdy got. And if anything, I hope that woke the coaching staff up, as long as Purdy's healthy, to start next week. And then maybe he's only a sophomore. He's not going anywhere. He transferred already in. So unless he graduates, which he's not yet, then he can't go anywhere. But I hope he's the front runner next year, I don't want him to just automatically think it's going to be Harburg or Sims, Give Purdy his due. If he's anything like his brother, then, he's going to find a way to win it, even though he might not shine as well in practice. I don't know what these coaches are seeing, and I'm even going to his brother, Brock. One of them coaches were seeing preseason before he had to have his shot because of injuries, and then he does what he's doing. Is if he's not doing that in practice, then maybe that was it. But if he was, then what are you looking at? Same here. If Purdy is doing that, and they're even saying he was giving the offense or the defense fits in running the scout team against the defense. Well, when you're giving our defense fits, you got to be doing something right. they're probably not going to play a better defense except probably Iowa this week. So what it did to me is showed if you got Purdy in there and he could do the same thing and not turn the ball over and all that, he probably helped even the offenses, because I would have gave, just because of the turnovers, I'd have gave Iowa the edge probably on that area. On defensive side, to me, they're pretty even, but I'd probably give Iowa the edge on that. So at that time, I would have gave the edge and the win to Iowa and expecting the same, a close battle, 3 or 4 point loss. But if Purdy could do what he's doing there, improve a little bit more this week, and remember, he ain't going to get as much practice this week because it's a short week. And I think the defense in them is going to be ready. A lot of upperclassmen on this defense. Last game, senior day. So I expect it to be a big defensive battle. I expect it to be some kind of like 10-6, 10-9 game, maybe even 13-9 or something like that. Might be a touchdown in there. Expect more field goals than touchdowns. But let's get to where I think who's going to win. Even though Nebraska is at home, I think it's a pretty fairly even matchup, offensive and defense. Where I feel like Iowa has the edge is special teams and, like I said, losing's addictive. You've seen Iowa's been doing it for years. They know how to play these kind of games, and they know what it takes to win it. You've seen it all year. They're 9-2. You never would have even thought they'd be 9-2. So when you have a team that knows how to win, finds a way to win, this is how they've been playing it for the last 4 or 5 years. I've seen them do it. And then you got a team like Nebraska who's struggled, been losing the last 5 or 6 years. They just can't seem to get over the edge. They just keep losing these one-score games. It ain't just this year. It's been Frost's year, so it wasn't just Frost. They can't get over that edge because of that. And then on top of that, special teams is definitely an edge to Iowa. They got the best punter, quality kicker, and now their best return guy and their best secondary guy is out like he was last year. The difference is we don't have Trey Palmer this year. Now, maybe they could put Malachi Coleman in that spot, put it on that dude, and do the same thing they did last year. But the problem is we don't have the same coaching staff, so I don't see that happening. But put Jalen Lloyd, Malachi Coleman, and see what you got. Maybe you get away with that. You're not going to run on this team. You're not going to run against Iowa, but Nebraska's going to try. So I expect a very defensive battle, and I expect special teams to mean something. I expect Iowa to probably win the special teams battle. And because of this, I see Iowa pulling this game out. I'm going to come back and probably say 10-6, maybe 9-6. That's going to be the final. It's not going to be a lot of scoring in this game on either side. Iowa's not a big scoring team. And because our defense is really good, I don't expect them anything. Nebraska's offense isn't very good, even though Purdy kind of gives them a spark. But Iowa's defense is really that good. So I do see a close loss, and sorry to say that. But hopefully I'm wrong. And I'm going to go to the game. I'm going to go to Black Friday. And hopefully, maybe I'm going to the clinching of a bowl. But, we took Iowa out of their championship game, the Big Ten West championship last year, so at their place. So they're going to be ready to play. People think, oh, they've already clinched. They're not going to be so ready to play. No, they're playing Nebraska. They're ready to play. They're going to be ready to play. They're going to remember last year. And to them, it's going to be a goal to keep us from a bowl game in the Huskers' home stadium. That's going to be the best revenge they could do. So they're going to be ready, probably more than ready. So because of all this, I just don't see it going well. Nebraska's going to end up 5-7. To me, it's going to be a disappointment, especially when you were sitting at 5-3 at one time. Yes, they could still get a bowl, and I want them to go to a bowl just because I want them to have that 15 extra practices. But it's going to be like the Toilet Bowl or something like that. But there is a good chance they could still get a bowl, but you can't count on it. they could go in there and just win this game. They could get it. So again, we'll have some kind of reaction. Don't know when. Going to Lincoln to watch the game sometime over the weekend. But let's hope and pray that the team just comes out on their final day, with senior day, and just blow us away. So it'd be nice to see. So if you haven't already, please hit that like button. Help me out. That thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. And until the next video, guys, go Big Red.